Chef Wills.
NDTV 24/7.
Very good evening. You're watching India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. This is a show that gets you all the views and news for the global Indian. As always, we start with the headlines. First up, there's a travel ban that has been imposed by the Trump administration on 12 countries America feels that are most unsafe. Interestingly, the list does not feature Pakistan, a known terror haven. We decode why. The Trump administration versus Harvard face-off intensifies, with the government imposing a 6-month ban on students to study at America's oldest university. In signs of deepening nexus between Moscow and Pyongyang, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un backs Russia unconditionally and promises to expand ties further. Climate catastrophes like the deadly landslides in Philippines and flooding in Australia have caused massive marine heat waves that are 5 times the size of Australia. How concerned should we be? And in a huge boost to defense and aerospace manufacturing in India, the country will become the first, other than France, to manufacture Rafale's fuselage. In a major move, the US President Donald Trump has signed a new proclamation reinstating his controversial travel ban, this time expanding the list to 12 countries. That includes Myanmar, Afghanistan, Iran, Chad, Somalia, and Yemen. The White House has said that this is being aimed at protecting national security, citing difficulties in properly vetting migrants that are coming from these countries. But what's not on the list is raising enough and more eyebrows, and that is Pakistan, a country long accused of harboring US designated terrorist groups. This comes despite reports earlier that suggested that the Trump administration was considering sweeping travel restrictions that would include Pakistan. Now, what has changed? Remember, earlier in his first term, Trump adopted a tough posture towards Islamabad, criticizing its ties to terrorism. So the question we are now asking viewers is, what has really changed? Why is it that Pakistan is not in this list when you talk about threat emanating from terrorism? And let's get those big questions up on our screens before we get in our guest, Sushant Sareen, as well. Big questions that we are asking. Well, when it comes to Trump's travel ban, is it a security bid, or is it a bias, the fact that Pakistan is not being included? Secondary, why was terror hub Pakistan spared? What is it that's working and happening in the Oval Office that Pakistan has been spared? And lastly, what explains Trump's new love for Pakistan? And will the US hold Pakistan accountable, given the fact that some of the world's most dreaded terrorists are based in Pakistan, operate out of that territory, completely having state patronage? Let's get into Sushant Sareen, Strategic Affairs expert, Senior Fellow at ORF, joining me on the broadcast. Sushant, the question is what many would be baffled by, which is that when you talk about extremism, when you talk about threat, how is it that Pakistan doesn't feature in this list of 12 most dreaded countries?
Look, one of the reasons for that is that the Americans don't anticipate any major threat coming from Pakistan to stateside. And most of the Pakistani terror groups, they are seen as local terror groups which are only operating against India, to some extent against Afghanistan, maybe a couple of other countries, but they're not directly affecting American interests. And America's interest in terrorism has gone down. They simply do not care about the war on terror as they used to, as long as they were in Afghanistan. And even while they were in Afghanistan, they really did not turn the screws on Pakistan the way they should have. There were constant entreaties to Pakistan to do more, but never any real pressure applied. And in fact, Trump has this new acronym attached to him, TACO, Trump again chickens out, or Trump always chickens out. And when earlier in your report, when you were mentioning that in 2018, Trump had that famous tweet of Trump, but what action did he take against Pakistan? He ended maybe some military training programs and stuff, but did he impose any significant sanctions on Pakistan back then? No. And in fact, later on, he tried to use the Pakistanis to get to talk to the Taliban. So Trump always chickens out. And I think the Pakistanis gamed him well. The other thing which the Pakistanis have managed to do is they've managed to probably appeal to his baser interests or his own greed. Because if you look at some of the deals they have been making with Trumpians,
Just
if I
that,
can.
I was coming to just that it's not about national security, it's not about concerns related to extremism or terrorism. At the end of the day, the Trump administration only cares about one-on-one economic or beneficial deals, even if it means striking it with Pakistan, a known terror haven.
No, but I think there's even a difference in that. These are America does not gain anything from trading with Pakistan. What is America's trade with Pakistan? The US trade with Pakistan is what?
No,
Maybe $7 or $8 billion, right?
no, I'm
It's
referring to the
trade with,
crypto deals that are coming to light, where the Trump
yeah,
family is
but,
involved.
yeah, but those are purely personal business deals. Uh, so one is the crypto deals, and again, that is like a casino economy. Trump also runs some casinos, or at least he used to at one point of time. So that's a casino part of it. The other part of it is that the Pakistanis have held this carrot in front of these guys that there are these huge rare earth mineral deposits in Pakistan, and we will give these sweetheart deals to the Americans. Now the sweetheart deals are probably going to be Trump and his cronies. That's the second. The third is there is this very valuable property that the Pakistanis own in the heart of New York, which is this hotel called the Roosevelt Hotel, which is a dump right now. But there are plans inside Pakistan to either sublet it or get into some kind of a partnership agreement. And in his previous term, there were some reports that Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, was interested in that particular property. Now, all of this is mostly speculation. I think we should say, at least insofar as the Roosevelt Hotel is concerned, some of the other deals are concerned, except for the crypto deal, which is a done deal with Trump cronies and Trump's own Trump again himself. His family has interests in that particular deal. But all of this put together, does this really, upend the relationship with the United States has with India? Unless, of course, Trump is putting his personal and his business interests over American national interests, then it's a completely different matter. But other than that, when you stack up India and Pakistan, uh, I don't see where there is any kind of a comparison between 130, $150 billion of trade that we are doing
Sushant, then
with the.
let me ask you this, that at a time when India has been making a very concerted pitch, whether it is about ensuring that funds don't go to Pakistan, whether it's about ensuring that there is global isolation of Pakistan at UN or at various other platforms, how do you think we should now be recalibrating our approach to be able to further isolate Pakistan, ensure that the next time there's a travel ban that the Trump administration considers, it does include Pakistan as well? Indian narrative needs to be able to successfully do that.
Yeah, but I don't think we are as indispensable for the Americans to think that we can force the American hand to include Pakistan. If they do it, they will do it for their own interest, or because somebody high up in the United States has a pet peeve against Pakistan. They're not going to do it because we are asking them to do it. And given the proclivity of the Trump administration for alienating many of its very close allies, we've seen what's been happening with Europe. We've been seeing many European countries, or even for that matter, Canada. And frankly, no love lost for Canada, considering the kind of stuff which has been happening from there to India.
Indeed.
But is that the US or this particular administration has been rather obnoxious, if I was to use the word, when it comes to Canada, which is one of its closest partners. So there is this proclivity in the Trump administration, and for us to imagine
Okay.
that he will deliver on our wish list. That's not going to happen. But from what we really also need to rethink
Yes.
is that if we constantly keep giving in to Trump,
Yes.
then are we, giving into his baser instincts that he can keep bullying us and we keep taking it?
That's an
Should there
important point.
be some kind of pushback? And should we not also make use of this acronym TACO, Trump against chickens out, and make him chicken out on some of the things which are of interest to us?
Indeed. I'm going to leave it there. Sushant Sareen, thank you so much for joining me at the end of the day with some of the points that Sushant made about how is it that we can ensure that more concerted action is taken against Pakistan is the need of the hour. And in fact, to further that, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, once again in Washington, he in fact made those scathing remarks against Pakistan, saying that India's response is simply retribution against terrorism, and if Pakistan hadn't reacted, neither would India. Shashi Tharoor, in fact, is leading the delegation in the US, making India's case very clear. I want you to listen in to what exactly he said about Pakistan.
Understood for some time now that India has a very clear position that there will be no talks with a gun pointed at our head. It's not that we can't talk to Pakistan. I was joking the other day, we can speak all the languages they can speak. And we're very happy to dialogue with them in any of those languages. The problem is we will not dialogue with people who are pointing a gun at our heads. I mean, frankly, if your neighbor unleashes his Rottweilers to bite your children, and in fact to do worse to your children, and then says, let's talk, you think you're going to talk to him until he either unleashes those Rottweilers or locks them up in a kennel or puts them to sleep? It's as simple as that. You're not going to talk to people who are pointing guns at your temples. It's not going to happen.
All right, staying with Donald Trump, the clash between Trump and elite US universities is heating up. In a major move, Trump has suspended international student visas for new enrollees at Harvard, effective for an initial 6 months under a new proclamation. The Secretary of State has also been directed to reconsider and consider revoking visas for current Harvard students who fall under national security criteria that's been laid out by the administration. The White House says the step is necessary to protect US interests, citing national security concerns as a justification for barring international students from Harvard. Meanwhile, Columbia University is also under fire. The Department of Education has challenged its accreditation status, alleging the university no longer meets federal standards. The administration has accused Columbia of violating anti-discrimination laws, a move that could have sweeping consequences for colleges and universities, as education experts suggest it eliminates protections for students. Well, in more Trump news, the days after exiting Washington as the chief of Doge, Elon Musk has continued to target President Trump's massive tax and immigration package, better known as the Big Beautiful Bill, escalating his attacks and urging lawmakers to kill the bill. This came hours after several government agencies projected that the bill would add more than $2.4 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. Not just Musk, many hardline Republicans have also ramped up their attacks against the sprawling $4 trillion mega package that Donald Trump's administration has come out with. All right, on that note, viewers, we slip into a very short break. We come back with more news on the other side. Stay with us.
Summer's heating up with People's Postcode Lottery.
Wow!
Because in our July draws, you could win a share of £16.2 million.
You are joking, you are having a laugh.
Could a big summertime win land in your postcode?
Oh,
Sign up before midnight on the 30th of June.
oh my gosh!
A share of £16.2 million could be yours, but only if your door is in the draw.
So I've just got Sun Life's guaranteed over 50 plan. Super easy, no medical questions. I finally have the confidence to devote myself to my craft.
Woodwork?
I even made this.
Really?
With Sun Life, there's a guaranteed cash payout. But this is one less thing you'll have to spend it on.
Search Sun Life Plan today and get a free gift card.
If your garage looks like this, you need Tougher Man. a leading supplier of shelving for your home or business. Assembly is quick, easy and boltless. Buy one bay from just $59.99, or you can get 3 bays from only $119.99, saving you nearly £60. Plus, you get a 5-year Storelex steel guarantee. Order now at tougherman.co.uk.
Gus could try to sell his car privately. Or get it sold today with We Buy Any Car. He could spend days on end trying to sell to a bunch of time wasters. Or sell at a flash and earn major dad points at the pool. Big fail or big splash? To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
Sitting quietly while your car is made all shiny. Downtime can be just fine too. Ready meal is piping hot. Waterproof on the loo. Just enjoy your back tattoo. Tea break, face break, maybe even watch the ad break. Sometimes it's not time for some tombola, right? It's enjoying lasagna time, chilling with a book time, or time to visit your nan time. Put the phone down.
With 3, save £336 on the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And claim a Galaxy Tab A9 Plus worth £259 when you buy today. Search 3 or head in-store today. Life needs a big network.
Discover the finest quality made-to-measure window dressings, exclusively online, delivered direct to your door. Shop now for an extra 20% off and free delivery at blindsdirect.co.uk.
Well, moving on to the other big story that we're tracking, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un told a visiting top Russian official that his country will unconditionally support Russia's war against Ukraine. The latest sign of expanding cooperation between the two countries. In April, the two countries officially confirmed North Korean troops' deployment to Russia for the first time in the war, saying the soldiers of the two countries were fighting alongside each other to repel a Ukrainian incursion into Kursk region of Russia. At the time, Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked North Korea's participation in the war and promised not to forget their sacrifices. In a meeting with Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei in Pyongyang on Wednesday, Kim affirmed that North Korea will unconditionally support the stand of Russia and its foreign policies on all crucial international political issues, including the Ukrainian matter. This renewed show of unity comes as Putin pledges to retaliate against Ukraine for last weekend's unprecedented drone attack. Kremlin advisors and figures around Donald Trump have told the US president that the risk of a nuclear confrontation cannot be ruled out right now. To talk on that and to really understand what this means, let's get in Abhishek Sharma, who's a research assistant, joining us to talk more on this. Abhishek, how do you read the Russia-North Korea relationship in the backdrop of the fresh input that has been given in and reassertion that this is a partnership that they want to build on?
I think particularly since the signing of treaty last year, I think the relationship has really, kind of taken a kind of different level, particularly building on the military defense relationship. And I think in that context, this meeting becomes more important because it comes, I think, just within 3 months. The last meeting happened in March between Sergei Shoigu and the leader of the North Korea, Kim. And this shows that, Russia is really very grateful to North Korea for, kind of sending its soldiers, but not only soldiers, but the kind of military support that North Korea has sent or kind of given to Russia, particularly, for example, the ballistic missiles came in 23-24. And also, as per some reports, it says that North Korea has sent almost 6 million ammunitions to Russia, which have really played a great role. And also, this comes in the backdrop of the kind of success which Russia has seen in the Kursk region. So this shows that the both countries are really, kind of taking the relationship beyond the military into new realms.
Leave it there, Abhishek. Thanks much for joining us with that quick perspective. Turning focus now to what could be a major climate alarm bell, really a massive marine heat wave swept across Southeast Asia and the Pacific in 2024, engulfing nearly 40 million square kilometers of ocean, 5 times the size of Australia. That's according to a new report that's come in from the World Meteorological Organization. And scientists say that the extreme ocean temperatures were fueled largely by the climate crisis and coincided with a wave of devastating weather elements, from deadly landslides in the Philippines to flooding in Australia and several such other disasters. And nearly half a degree Celsius is now it's hotter than the 1991-2020 average. Satellite data also shows sea levels have been rising as well. So how significant is this? So what are the kind of alarm bells that this raises? Let's get in set Warren, who's in fact a director of the NRE Institute, joining me on the broadcast. Let me start by asking you in terms of explain to us and put these numbers into context for us to understand the significance or rather the gravity of what we are talking here.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this issue to bear. It's certainly crucial. It's hard to get your head around 40 million kilometers, or 5 times the size of Australia. But another way you could look at it, it is 10% of the ocean, which I'm sure all your viewers know that the Earth is primarily ocean. And you did mention a number that was 5 degrees. That you're talking about you're talking about the atmosphere, but the temperature just above a few meters above the ocean, or as much as 4 or 5 Celsius degrees above what is normal. And why that's significant is because those temperatures affect the weather throughout the world. And you see increased number of hurricanes, and the severity of the hurricanes is from that kind of temperature. I'm sure you've heard over and over people talk about with the rising temperature of the oceans, that creates more energy, et cetera. And so this is pretty significant. And it's not just one event at that size. It's multiple events that are happening in the same area, and we rate them from moderate to strong to severe. And there have been some severe areas like in Papua New Guinea late last year, and this has been going on now for a year and a half. We started recording it as an event in early April 2024, and it's continuing, and we see no sign of it abating at this point.
Indeed. Now, what is it that we can actually do to ensure that we do not exacerbate this trend further? Because at the end of the day, this is a climate crisis.
So, speaking to that specifically, and you're right, what can we do? We have to do everything that we're being told to avoid using fossil fuels. So if there's something called the Climate Shift Index, which looks at what's the likelihood of this event happening were there no climate change, no global warming, versus where it is today, where there is, and the ratio is 20 to 1. What that means is that the Climate Shift Index means it's 20 times more likely that this weather event, this marine heat wave, would have happened than had we not been burning fossil fuels for the last 100+ years. But in the peak season, which I think is late November, it's 100 times more likely. So the answer is quite obvious. We need to find a way to stop using fossil fuels. And as you talked about some of the things that's going on in the United States, and the unfortunate that the United States has walked away from the Paris Agreement. Hopefully that will not encourage other countries to do the same.
U.S. has also identified millions of square kilometers of land that it will now be drilling more in Alaska. So what are we really talking about here? What else can be done? Let's talk about that, sir.
Well, certainly, for folks in the States, we need to call our legislators and tell them that, but I have seen that throughout Asia, the electric cars are becoming more popular, which is great. I've seen it in India, I've seen it in China, I've seen it in Vietnam, throughout. So I think that's one of the things that we can do. We have to be more attentive to. So there's two sides of the equation. We always talk about generating energy through solar and wind and all, and which is fantastic. At the same time, we have to reduce our load. And again, Asia is way ahead. Your air conditioner is an inverter-driven air conditioner. In the West, United States, for example, you rarely see an inverter-driven air conditioner, which is 30% more efficient. Why is that? Well, because there are industries and politics that are involved in changing the way things are being done. So the answer is we have to do what we all know we have to do, which is not necessarily sacrificing, but to shift the way in which we're using energy.
All right, let's leave it there. Sir, thanks much for speaking to NDTV. Well, we have limited, if any, options there, don't we? Shifting focus now to Japan, which is taking another bold leap into space. Tokyo-based startup iSpace is preparing for its second moon landing attempt this Friday, 2 years after its first try ended in failure. If successful, it would mark the first controlled lunar touchdown by a non-American private company. The mission is part of the growing commercial interest in the moon, and iSpace has big plans envisioning a lunar colony of 1,000 people by the 2040s and at least 7 more missions through 2029. Their lander, called Resilience, is currently orbiting 100 kilometers above the moon and carries a microwave-sized rover built by iSpace's Luxembourg unit. If it lands safely, it will explore the Mars Frigoris, a lunar plain near the North Pole. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Global. On the other side, we have a very special show, Fault Lines, where we decode what's really happening in Nepal. Stay tuned.
Kelsey and Reese could part exchange their car. Or check out We Buy Any Car. They could be confused if they got a good deal part exchanging. Or have cash in the bank with more bargaining power to get their dream camper van. Bad vibes or good vibes only. To get a quote in 30 seconds, enter your reg number now at webuyanycar.com.
Looks like the spray tan guy will just come straight to your house. But how's it going with the chairman?
Good shot, Sir Rupert.
Big news, he's confirmed profits are up again.
You know, Nationwide have shared their profits with over 4 million of their members.
We can't compete with that.
But shouldn't we try and do something similar?
Shareholders are the beating heart of this bank. Wedge me. What's the matter? Lost your balls?
This year, we're giving £100 to every eligible member through our fairer share payment. Nationwide, a good way to bank.
At Currys, there's amazing tech for everyone's needs. In store, Bridget, who is deaf, is being recommended a laptop.
And this Surface Copilot Plus PC live captions calls.
Perfect for work.
Bridget lets out a sigh of relief so powerful, the colleague's hair billows. Elsewhere, Joe, who is partially sighted, is being shown a vacuum cleaner.
So this Dyson V12 Absolute is lightweight and cord-free.
No more tripping over the cords.
She too sighs with relief, making brochures fly everywhere, and colleagues seek shelter. And here, a colleague is showing Damien and his guide dog Flynn washing machines.
How about this LG with the large clickable dial? That'll make things so much easier.
Damien lets out a sigh of relief, so does Flynn. And a tremendous wind fills the store. Air fryers toggle, trainees dodge flying blenders. Amazing tech for everyone. Currys, beyond expectations.
Not all Sims are created equal. So here on the UK's best network, we've made one to meet the needs of families at home or on holiday. You'll get unlimited data, but we've made it shareable. That way you can always stay connected with the family when they need it most. Going away? You'll get 50 gigabytes of VU data roaming included so you can find the sites without a worry. And we've made that shareable too, all for just £24 a month. It's no wonder families choose EE. Offer ends 30th of June.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Fault Lines on NDTV. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. This is a show where we decode the truth beneath the headlines and beyond the divide. Today, we are going to talk about Nepal, which has been rocked by protests as a former king returns to claim his throne. Pro-monarchy protests have taken over Nepal as a frustrated proletariat demands the former king, Gyanendra Shah, lead Nepal towards change and, more importantly, stability, restore the country as a Hindu state. The government is not taking this lying down. So what are the issues? What is the real crux of the matter here? Well, it's a battle for identity. It's a battle for Nepal's identity. That is the biggest fault line that's running across Nepal for 60 years, ever since it first signed the treaty with India. One that has religious tones as well and has deeper strategic impact. Viewers, now Nepal is on the edge as people are frustrated by the government's lack of a cohesive roadmap. There's corruption, there's failure in terms of governance, economic challenges that continue to rise, and they're becoming increasingly disillusioned. People need answers. They are demanding a return to what they claim was a better time, when their king ensured that there was stability and there was a road to economic prosperity. Thousands and thousands of people, all royal supporters, have flocked to the streets in Nepal, waving flags, chanting slogans, demanding that their king come back and restore Hinduism as a state religion. And this, of course, happened just 100 meters away from, well, pro-government protesters. And this is the battle of identity that is playing out in Nepal. What is exactly the real issue here? I want to first play out this report that tells you why this runs at the very heart of not just Nepali politics, Nepali society, culture, ethos, and of course, religion. Listen in.
A former king back to claim his throne, reigniting a country's decades-old battle for identity. Nearly 17 years after Nepal abolished the 239-year-old Hindu monarchy, ousting King Gyanendra Shah, he returned to Kathmandu in March this year, vowing to unite a Nepal divided by ideology. Thousands filled the streets, echoes ringing, "Come King, save the nation." Not everyone welcomed the king with open arms. Nepal's major political parties, the Nepal Congress, CPN-UML, CPN, strongly opposed the monarchy's revival. Protests quickly turned violent across Kathmandu, buildings set ablaze, pitting frustrated citizens against leaders at the helm of Nepal's government. In counter-rallies, two former prime ministers, Pushp Kamal Dahal Prachanda and Madhav Kumar Nepal, warned him not to dream of reclaiming the throne. Trying to snip the movement in the bud, the police cracked down on the protests, arresting 110 protesters, including key pro-monarchy leaders. Anarchist Durga Prasai, a Maoist leader turned pro-monarchy voice, was also later arrested for provoking protesters. Since Shah's return, Nepal has seen waves of pro-monarchy protests over the past few months, fueled by public dissatisfaction over political instability, a stagnating economy, and a demand for change. Led by the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, pro-monarchist groups demand establishing Nepal as a Hindu state and reinstate the over 200-year-old monarchy.
हामी सशक्त रूपमा आन्दोलन गर्दैछौँ कि नेपालको हितको निमित्त जबसम्म संवैधानिक राष्ट्र स्तर र हिन्दू राष्ट्र स्थापित हुँदैन तबसम्म हाम्रो आन्दोलन जारी रहन्छ.
After months of simmering tension, the pro-monarchy movement began renewed protests this week to mark the 24th memorial day of the Nepal Royal Palace massacre, when King Birendra Shah, King Gyanendra Shah's elder brother, and several members of the royal family were brutally killed by Crown Prince Dipendra in 2001. While these renewed protests were relatively peaceful, the fervour among the thousands of protesters was evident, chanting slogans against the republic system and Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli. Fearing the movement will grow stronger, Nepal's former Home Minister Kamal Thapa and about half a dozen others were arrested during the protests. The government also banned protests and public gatherings in several parts of Kathmandu. While similar protests have occurred in 2021 and 2023, the air around this wave of protests is different, triggered by widespread public dissatisfaction and disillusionment. It remains to be seen where Nepal's age-old battle for identity is headed. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
All right, viewers, to understand what really is happening on ground, before we go back in time to understand why this is not a new issue, I want to first get in Bhushan Dahal, who's a journalist joining me live from Nepal, to understand the issues that are playing out and, more importantly, how the situation is unfolding. Mr. Dahal, thanks so much for speaking to NDTV. Let me start by asking you, at this stage, explain to us the situation on ground, how grim it is, given the fact that these protests are unlike what the country has seen in the past.
Thank you very much for having me. Primarily, the situation on the ground is not as grim as reports portray. There is dismay. And as your report rightly said, it's primarily for or against the delivery aspect of the government of the day and the politics and the polity we have adhered to govern Nepal for the past 18 years. And the pro-monarchy aspect to the entire protests in Kathmandu was a very small residual reality that Nepal lived with and which will live for much longer than people want this to remain. But at this moment of time, the geometrical growth in the dismay of a common man is purely governance aspect of the government of the day.
Okay.
And that is sugar-coated by the mesmerizing memories that people had about monarchy when we actually were a monarchical state. People expect tangible diplomatic feats around the region, in the neighborhood, and the globe itself. We are represented lesser and more inefficiently these days in the global forums. Nepal's name as a South Asian entity has fizzled out over the years. That has not been worked upon. And these are the real political factors that the unrest in Nepal at the moment is contributed for.
Very quickly, Mr. Bhushan, I want to ask you this, that while, of course, the disenchantment that people have with the governments is a very major factor, I want to understand from you the desire, as far as the pro-monarchy protests are concerned, to go back in time. What is the cause of it? I mean, you are saying, of course, public disenchantment is one, but what else?
I think people have started flipping over the history books. And when we adhered to monarchy, monarchy had a very well-deserved representation of the country the world over and in global forums. And there were issues that need immediate attention. It was just a one-door policy. These days, I told you earlier that delivery is the biggest issue. Okay. If you go to a government office, if people want things done, yes. If you're not known to the office, if you're not known to the personnel,
so what you're saying is corruption. Corruption is a major factor as far as why there is growing disenchantment that people have. I'm going to leave it there. Bhushan, thank you so much for joining me from Kathmandu to really decode what is turning out to be a very major issue that India is keeping an eye on. But viewers, as we now decode as far as the fault lines that we have been mentioning in Nepal, I'm going to point out why is it so important to go back in time to understand the issue related to Nepal? And I'm going back in time all the way to 1950, because unless you do, you cannot understand this fault line that exists and is so important for India from a social, political, economic, strategic point of view. Okay, now I'm taking a case of two they were provinces earlier and countries earlier, which is Sikkim and Nepal. Now, as far as Nepal is concerned, India signed and inked a treaty of peace and friendship way back in 1950. This was under Pandit Nehru, and this was a time when the Ranas were there, and the king had been deposed, and he was in fact living in exile in India that time. This is the time, 1950, when that deal was signed. Now, in contrast, there was also a deal with that Sikkim signed, where it became a protectorate of India. So you can see what worked for Sikkim that didn't work for Nepal. As I said, unless you draw comparisons and go back in time in history, you cannot really understand the present. The other fact is, let's go back to that. In Sikkim, in 1975 is when the referendum was signed, came into play, and that is when the monarchy was abolished, and Sikkim became a part of India. That's the one. Let's take that Sikkim part of it to understand how it unfolded. As far as Nepal is concerned, in 1975, again the same year, it pushed for a zone of peace that India refused. So there are several layers of what really happened and transpired between India and Nepal. So there was a time, as I said, when the treaty was signed in 1950 between Pandit Nehru and Ranas, when the king was in exile. Now, when the king came back to power, there's historical literature that supports this claim that the king offered to unite and be a part of India as one of the provinces, like Sikkim. Something that, as I said, historical literature supports is an offer that the government of the day, that time, Pandit Nehru, was not in favor of. One can surmise it could also be because of the fact that India under Pandit Nehru projected a secular image, there were secular credentials, and Nepal was a Hindu kingdom, Nepal was a Hindu country. That played on whether or not to merge India and Nepal during the time of the exiled king. So which is why that deep fault line continues to remain. In Nepal is important, but given the fact that there is this historical undertone, it impacts how India and Nepal's relations have progressed. I'm going to slip into a very short break, come back on the other side, talk more about what this means for India and Nepal future going forward. As I said, we've gone back in time to understand the fault line. We're going to come back and decode that in greater detail to set the roadmap to understand the future. Stay with me.
So I've just got Sun Life's guaranteed over 50 plan. Super easy, no medical questions. I finally have the confidence to devote myself to my craft.
Woodwork?
I even made this.
Really?
With Sun Life, there's a guaranteed cash payout. But this is one less thing you'll have to spend it on.
Search Sun Life Plan today and get a free gift card.
Not all Sims are created equal. So here on the UK's best network, we've made one to meet the needs of families at home or on holiday. You'll get unlimited data, but we've made it shareable. That way you can always stay connected with the family when they need it most. Going away, you'll get 50 gigabytes of VU data roaming included so you can find the sites without a worry. And we've made that shareable too, all for just £24 a month. It's no wonder families choose EE. Offer ends 30th of June.
If you're out there and you're watching this message, we need your help and we need it now. This is a typical day at the outpatient department. Every day we see very many cases of children with severe pneumonia. All these children need to be seen and they all need to be seen today. This is Priscilla, baby Priscilla. This baby has severe pneumonia. It really hurts for this child to be breathing. If Priscilla doesn't get antibiotic treatment, it could lead to death. This is what children with pneumonia need. With antibiotics like this, a child can get better in just a few days. The problem we have is we simply do not have enough medicine. It's very heartbreaking to see a child suffer like this. With your help, we can save more lives. So please help us.
Life's full of times like this. Oh yeah. The gaps between the good stuff. Okay. Like killing time in waiting rooms. It's not long until you've had enough. David, it's time for some tombola. Working on that flat pack. Open for fun. Been bulking up the six-pack. Open for fun. Yes! I've won £11! All right, calm down. It's just a bit of bingo. Open for fun.
I bought cars on finance, so I've made my claim.
If our lenders charge hidden commissions, then I've made my claim.
I could be owed thousands.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim. It's so quick and simple.
You could be owed thousands in hidden commissions from vehicles bought on finance since 2007, even without the details.
I've made my claim.
Trust myclaimgroup.co.uk.
Claims made simple.
All right, we understood before going into the break as to why we need to go back in time to understand the India-Nepal relationship. India, it seems, there was some historical literature supporting it wanted to be a part of India as a province. That's what Nepal wanted to do, just like Sikkim. But due to several factors, historical as they may be, it didn't work out. And that explains partially why during the last couple of decades, India-Nepal relationship has undergone a sea change. And in the backdrop of that, as the current protests continue to intensify, it has ramifications for India from a strategic point of view, from a security point of view. The fact that there's been such a sea change in power in Nepal, that you had a king who was deposed and you had a Maoist leader who actually was a pioneer of guerrilla warfare in Nepal, now running and being part of the establishment. Who brought about these changes? How did that actually happen? From a kingdom, Hindu kingdom, all the way to a communist country with guerrilla warfare background, now leading and being part of establishment. That is important to understand to really decode the future of Nepal and Nepali government. I'm going to play out this report to tell you in detail the players who are part of the Nepali political landscape.
Nepal's pro-monarchy movement is gaining traction, triggering a growing tug-of-war between powerful voices trying to define Nepal's identity. At the heart of the pro-monarchy movement is King Gyanendra Shah, Nepal's last monarch who ruled during the country's final years as a Hindu kingdom. Taking the throne in 2001 after the tragic massacre of his elder brother and family, King Gyanendra shifted Nepal away from the constitutional monarchy established by his brother King Birendra and seized absolute power, citing a national crisis and Maoist insurgency. Eventually stripped of his throne in 2008, Shah remained an important symbol of unity and Hindu identity within Nepal, with his return sparking the pro-monarchy movement this year. King Gyanendra's silences speak louder than words, with his rare speeches hinting at his dissatisfaction with Nepal's political direction, often seen as a rallying cry for a return to monarchy. Then comes the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, the only mainstream political party in the country, openly demanding the restoration of the monarchy and Nepal's Hindu state status. Fueling this renewed movement is former Deputy Prime Minister Rajendra Lingden and veteran pro-monarchy leader Kamal Thapa, calling for a return to tradition and national unity to resonate with the youth and disenchanted middle class. Finally, one of the most prominent yet controversial faces opposing the pro-monarchy movement is former Nepal Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal, or Prachanda, once a rebel leader of Nepal's bloody Maoist insurgency who brought down the monarchy. Prachanda became a key figure in Nepal's transition to a republic in 2008. From the jungle to the government, Prachanda's journey to power was a violent one, costing 17,000 lives. Despite the growing monarchist movement, Prachanda remains defiant, determined not to let the crown return. In this battle for identity, who will rise to the top remains to be seen. NDTV Bureau Report.
All right, let's get in Manjeev Puri. He's a former ambassador of India to Nepal to really decode some of what is happening right now. Ambassador Puri, this is a show where we try and decode fault lines within any country, region, particular issue. And one of the biggest fault lines that runs through Nepal is its jostle for identity. The pro-monarchy, pro-Hindu kingdom a sentiment that is clashing with the present sentiment, or also the other sentiment about the communist government-centric view. How do you see this battle for Nepal's identity playing out going forward in terms of the pro-monarchy and the pro-government protesters clashing?
Gaurie, thank you very much for having me on your program, and thank you for focusing on Nepal, which in my view is one of the most important countries in terms of India and our relations in the world. Now, please don't mind my saying so, but the graphics that you showed earlier, their conclusions are a little different. Nepal was never a state of India. The British had separate treaties with Nepal.
I said the same, that Nepal was never a state of India.
Gaurie, please listen to me a little bit. Because the kind of comparisons that you drew with Sikkim are totally untenable. Sikkim was a protectorate of British India.
Right.
Nepal was not. Do you know the British embassy in Nepal reported to London, not to New Delhi. The Nepalese never did it. So I think we should be very clear on this. And all this business of they wanted to say, you know, there are just some kind of vague reports, because India is the country that brought democracy to Nepal, that always stood for the Nepalese people and Nepal wanting democracy. Even this business in 2006, bringing about a kind of patch-up, a political dialogue resulting in a political comprehensive peace agreement in Nepal. India had the most important hand, which is recognized even by Nepalis. India is a country of influence in Nepal. That's what I want to tell you. And the reason for that is because we stand with the people of Nepal. Now, these monarchy protests. Let me say something to you. You know, all the pro-monarchy people, in 2008, it was abolished. The entire parliament, every party voted for it to be abolished. Their pro-monarchy parties have barely managed to get one or two seats in a 275 house. These protests are there. They happened on 28th of May this time. Again, they've petered out. They've been having a fight with each other. This is the nature of it. Now, why do some people hanker for monarchy? Nepal is a young nation. They don't even know what was going on during the monarchy. They are disenchanted, as your earlier interlocutor here said. They're disenchanted, they are frustrated.
Right.
They find that politics is not delivering what they thought it would. Switzerland of South Asia, it is not. And so therefore, they don't know what to do it. And some people say, here is the king, this was good old times, those kind of words.
Absolutely.
No, the reality is, Nepal needs good governance.
Absolutely.
It needs better governance. It needs governance which responds to the democratic aspirations and economic aspirations.
And the young people's aspirations.
Correct. Absolutely. And I'll say something else to you, Gaurie. It needs mentioning and noting in India. Nepal is perhaps a more globalized country than we are.
Absolutely. Ambassador Puri, I'm going to come in there for a question, and I'm going to give you all the time, sir. This is a question where the attempt is to decode.
Yeah,
no debate, just to decode. That's the idea. I want to understand that, you're right about mentioning that misgovernance and corruption is the root cause of why there's so much of anguish regarding the present dispensation, a dozen odd governments in the last decade. But the reason why we also want to decode this in greater detail is because the pro-monarchy sentiment, we want to understand in greater detail. Of course, there's anguish. Of course, there's disenchantment. But the fact that it's leading into and feeding into the pro-monarchy sentiment is something I want to understand from you and decode that for our viewers in detail.
So, Gaurie, I'm not sure there's any pro-monarchy sentiment other than for a few people. Those people are using the idea of a monarch, the good old days, to project themselves and try and be there. They've actually not been successful in the power game in Kathmandu. But the politicians in Nepal are wily people. There is always every possibility that they turn around and resurrect some kind of form of monarchy in some sense, no king and no real sovereign in that sense.
And on that note, completely timed out as we tried to decode yet another fault line. We're going to come back next week with another episode of Fault Lines to decode beyond the headlines, beyond the divide, because there are issues that need greater clarity and more in-depth focus. Thank you so much for watching this episode.
If your garage looks like this, you need Tougher Man. A leading supplier of shelving for your home or business. Assembly is quick, easy and boltless. Buy one bay from just $59.99, or you can get 3 bays from only $119.99, saving you nearly £60. Plus you get a 5-year Storelex steel guarantee. Order now at tougherman.co.uk.
At Currys, there's amazing tech for everyone's needs. In store, Bridget, who is deaf, is being recommended a laptop.
And this Surface Copilot Plus PC live captions calls.
Perfect for work.
Bridget lets out a sigh of relief so powerful, the colleague's hair billows. Elsewhere, Joe, who is partially sighted, is being shown a vacuum cleaner.
So this Dyson V12 Absolute is lightweight and cord-free.
No more tripping over the cords.
She too sighs with relief, making brochures fly everywhere, and colleagues seek shelter. And here, a colleague is showing Damien and his guide dog Flynn washing machines.
How about this LG with the large clickable dial? That'll make things so much easier.
Damien lets out a sigh of relief, so does Flynn. And a tremendous wind fills the store. Air fryers toggle, trainees dodge flying blenders. Amazing tech for everyone. Currys, beyond expectations.
Wouldn't life be so much easier if you could control your blinds at the touch of a button? With ultra smart blinds from Appeal, there's no chains, cords or wiring, because these stylish blinds are driven by a rechargeable power pack. New ultra smart blinds from Appeal, the intelligent solution for home shading.
During World War II, my great-granddad, George Arthur Roberts, was awarded for his bravery fighting fires night after night. Thanks to him and his fellow volunteers, there was a city to wake up to.
Discover the untold stories of World War II in millions of records and bring your backstory to life with Ancestry.
Life's full of times like this. Oh yeah. The gaps between the good stuff. Okay. Like killing time in waiting rooms. It's not long until you've had enough. David, it's time for some tombola. Working on that flat pack. Open for fun. Been bulking up the 6-pack. Open for fun.
Yes! I've won £11!
All right, calm down. It's just a bit of bingo. Open for fun.
With 3, save £336 on the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And claim a Galaxy Tab A9 Plus worth £259 when you buy today. Search 3 or head in-store today. Life needs a big network.
One of the gates of tragedy last evening. At this time, people died right where I'm standing. This is gate number 21, one of the gates to enter the Chinnaswamy Stadium where the crowds had gathered. You see out there the guard, a security guard who was standing here, told me a short while ago people tried to climb over those walls all over the place. Those CCTV cameras there can tell you a huge tale of tragedy and how it unfolded yesterday. In fact, the security guard here said he had to run away along with his colleagues to save his life. So that was the scene here last evening. It's as if nothing has happened the moment here today. Several questions, important questions, several reactions, multiple comments, important to fix blame, and a big question on whether we will learn from this tragedy.